are delicate animals, yeah, chosen for this life. We are eagles that roam, flying through the sky. We are delicate animals, yeah, chosen for this life. Chosen for this life, and we are glowing beautiful lights, and we are waking in the mind, and we are strengthened, unbreakable tonight, unbreakable. We are birds flying from home, just souls that learn to fly. We are delicate animals, yeah, chosen for this life.
Get ready to get inspired. This is the Go for the Goldie podcast.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. Hope you're having an awesome Taco Tuesday. Today, I am joined by driving on the thruway, Roger Wilson, former professional rugby player of 15 years. Roger, how are you, sir?
Well, better to hear you, Brian, and that beautiful Buffalo accent of yours.
Yeah, you want to talk about accents, Mr. Ireland? Come on now.
Well, I'm just gonna be happy as long as people can understand me.
I think English is English, no matter what twang you got, right?
Yeah, true.
Roger, I know you can't see me right now, but I am rocking a Rub Course shirt, just in honor of our conversation right now. So how about that, huh?
How about that, eh? Repping Rubcorp. You've already got it in. It's only 1 minute in, and you're repping Rubcorp.
Hey, man, you got to get the plugs in when you can. Saw an opportunity, and I hit the hole, kind of like rugby, hey? How about that for a tie-in, too, huh?
There we go, eh? Back and forth.
Let's go. Yeah, I know you're on limited time today because obviously it's Tuesday and you got to go eat a bunch of tacos, I'm sure. I know that's what I have on deck. So we'll get right into it, man. I mean,
Okay.
kind of, I always like to – people always ask me when I talk about the show, how I got into or, how I meet these people or how I get in touch with, the people that I talk to. And with you, I think it's pretty funny. I mean, from my perspective – the first time I actually met you, well, I don't remember the first time I met you in person, to be honest with you. But the second time when we did the interview for Rubcore, when you guys interviewed me about triathlon, when I met you, I'm like, why the hell aren't we interviewing this guy? He's obviously in great shape and he's huge. He's way more of an athlete than I am. But so and then we get to talking a little bit and find out you played rugby, and we talk about kind of what I'm doing here with the show and everything, and you tell me you're from Ireland and everything, so obviously a very intriguing story. So when I put former 15-year professional rugby player on there, let's get right into it in terms of your rugby career. Where'd you play? How'd you get started? Let's kind of give me the high level overview right off the bat here.
Sure. Well, I have retired 3 years almost to the day. So I did, yeah, I played professionally for 15 years. Um, 11 of it in Ireland and 4 in England. So there's 2 different leagues there. The English one's very much like the Premier League soccer. The Irish one is a mixture of Irish teams, Welsh, Scottish, Italian, a couple of South African teams, bizarrely enough. So, yeah, 15 years is a long time in any sport. In rugby, it's an awfully long time, with all the kind of physical attrition that your body's taking. I think 350 plus games I played, which, compare rugby to the NFL, which a lot of people do. They play kind of, I don't know if I'm right, but it's somewhere around the line of 15, 16 games possibly.
16.
Rugby
Yep.
would be more, yeah, rugby would be more than double that, So the season goes on forever, and it does take its toll. So to be able to get 15 years is tough. It's a big ask, and I was able to do it. And the body's holding up well, and without, with the exception of a few little niggly injuries, all in one piece.
Yeah, well, you're, a sport like that, I mean, you're inevitably going to get some of these injuries, but yeah, you're right. 15 years is pretty damn impressive. What would, because I know in football, the NFL, the average lifespan of an athlete in the NFL, I think is somewhere like 2 or 3 years. I mean, once you get there, it's hard to stay there just because of the, straight competitiveness of the league. People are always coming for your spot. So, you're talking maybe the average NFL player is going to get 32 games in a professional league here. For a rugby player, what's an average career look like? Obviously 15 years is long. I'm assuming not everyone goes 15 years, but what's an average lifespan of a rugby player in the professional ranks over there?
Well, it would be, I think the average, I believe, last time I found out was about 7 years anyway, 6, 7 years, and it's probably getting less and less. Whenever I played, it was rugby's a fairly new sport professionally. It only went professional in 1995, so 25 years pretty much. So it's a very new sport. So it's learning a lot. It's grown an awful lot over that period of time, and these last few years, you're really seeing the game develop massively in terms of the physical, the beasts that are coming through in the game. So I think it'll only be a matter of time before the career length will go down and down, and probably not toward as much as it is as NFL. I think they're, like you said, around 2 years or whatever. But I mean, the thing about that, the kind of conveyor belt of athletes that they have over here is just crazy, and they have one league. Well, I know they did have the XFL for a while. And maybe one or two other kind of smaller little things going on, but they have one league, whereas rugby has leagues around the world. So there's more opportunities to play and keep your profession going. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it's 7 years anyway. So to be able to do double that is testament to I don't know, good genes, I guess, and drinking a lot of milk whenever I was a kid.
Drinking. It's scientifically proven. You drink milk, you have a long rugby career. That's all there is to it. That's it.
Strong bones, yeah.
So when you played, what position were you?
Not sure many people would know too much about positions, but my position was actually called number 8. It doesn't really have a proper name for it. It's just called number 8. It's part of a group of players, 3 players called the back row. So for anybody that watches rugby, you'll see the thing called a scrum, where 8 players push against 8 players. That's called a scrum, and basically I'm at the very back of that. So number 8. The team's divided up into forwards and backs. Basically, to probably put it in a simplistic form, the forwards are the ones who win the ball, the backs are the ones who score. And it's more to it than that, obviously, but that's the most simplistic way you can do it.
Well, for me, I played football my whole life, and you met me. I'm a little guy, so when I got to college, I wasn't going to be playing anything other than D2, D3, and then I wound up going to the University of Buffalo, which is a D1 school. Not a major powerhouse or anything, but still Division I. So I definitely knew I wasn't the right size to play football. So I actually got into rugby when I got to the University of Buffalo, and I was going from I knew that I had a body type that at least I'd have a fit on the team. I'd have a chance of making it. So
Yeah.
I went from, I didn't know anything about rugby. So for me, the way I always explained it is, obviously over here, I think people know a lot more about football other than, as opposed to rugby. So to me, I describe it as like when you say the fronts and the backs, like it's like linemen versus skill players is kind of like the way that I would describe it. Like
Yeah.
when you see the rugby sevens, that's kind of like like a passing only league kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I think it's a sport for all shapes and sizes, and that's the beauty about it. That
Yeah.
if you're the diminutive stature like yourself, you would probably be
Nice way of putting it. Thank you.
Your position would probably be, I don't know, maybe I'm guessing wrong, but scrum half potentially. The guy who has to get everywhere around the pitch and make all the passes from the breakdown.
Yeah, they actually
and then
they had me at winger when I was playing because I was pretty quick. I just get the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's the other position for the short guys.
Yep. And the other guy, but you're right. The scrum half was also a short guy too. So
Yeah,
it was
but then
interchangeable.
at the other end of that, you've got your position called second rows, where they're up to kind of 6 foot, almost towards 7 foot. So the tall guys, they're the ones who get thrown up in the line out and have to jump in the air and catch the ball. So, and you get the more round shaped fellas, the sumo wrestler style, who are the ones who are at the front of the scrum. You're kind of O-line guys, so it's a bit for everything, so that's one of the great things about rugby.
So how did you come across playing professionally? Is it, like obviously over here, most of it is, drafts, trying to get professional in really any of the leagues over here, the NHL, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, soccer. There's drafts, and that's pretty much the primary way you get there, or sign as a free agent and kind of work your way to the team. How did you do it?
Well, it's very different. We don't have a draft system back home at all, so the whole draft system in US sport is quite new to me, and it's pretty intriguing. It's a cool way of doing it, but I've no idea really how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it was really a case of you play. You're basically spotted in school, in high school, sometimes as early as the equivalent of middle school over here, and they'd kind of keep an eye on you. And once you finish school, then you would go into a local or kind of regional academy system. So basically every kind of region. I mean, Ireland, for example, where I'm from, Ireland's divided into 4 provinces. Each of those provinces has a professional rugby team. So if you're in a school within one of those provinces and you have and you're talented enough, you'll be invited to kind of try out for one of the academy roles. So you'll almost train full time then once you finish school alongside your university. So they try and make it as full on in terms of a professional athlete's life as possible, but they give you the leeway to go and study as well. So
Gotcha.
They really are. They're pretty proactive in trying to get people to finish their degrees. Something to fall back on with injuries and all that. But that's just in a nutshell. That's kind of the way it works. It's becoming a little bit more like soccer, where players younger and younger are getting spotted, but I think it will take a while just to get to that level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was going to say that sounds pretty much the exact opposite of the United States, where they're signing kids in middle school and like, hey, go pro as quick as you can, get that money. So it's sounds like it's a pretty crazy different system.
Uh-huh.
So you played pro for 15 years, and then what kind of crowds are at these kind of games? Obviously it's a big sport over there, whereas opposed to here, people don't really even know, like you said, can't even name a position on the field. So what are the crowds like at these kind of games?
Well, it's very varied, international level. So that's the difference as well. Rugby is played internationally around the world. So for the big kind of international games, the likes of New Zealand against England or Ireland against South Africa, you're talking crowds the same as kind of NFL or college, that sort of, tens of thousands, if not towards the hundreds of thousands or 100,000. So it's good crowds. Then you go down to kind of the club level, which then can really vary. You might, the top ones, there wouldn't be as much as the likes of Premier League soccer, where you're talking 50,000 probably basically a lot of the stadiums would average around 20 to 30,000 in newer stadiums. So it's not huge, but it's still a decent number.
I mean, that's still really impressive. I mean, Toyota Stadium here in Frisco, that's 20,000, and
Yeah.
that's a sellout. I mean, that place is rocking, So
Oh yeah, well that's exactly the same size as the stadium that I played for most of my life in Belfast in Northern Ireland, where the stadium was probably around 20,000 as well, and it used to sell out every weekend. And
that's amazing.
it was I mean, the noise they made for 20,000 people was incredible, and that's a great thing about sport back in the UK and Europe and whatever. The crowds are they sing a lot, it's not like they're quiet for a while and then they just cheer whenever something gets exciting. They have all their songs, whether it be rugby or soccer or whatever, they have all their songs. So it's quite a good atmosphere all the way throughout.
And like we were talking about too, I think when we first met, or at that interview that I'd referenced earlier, one of the things we were talking about was, Belfast isn't that big of a city. I was actually surprised when you told me. I forgot the number. How big is the area? Do you remember?
I think it's somewhere between 300 to 500,000, something like that. So it's not huge.
No, that's not, because then when you start thinking about, you said you guys play basically double the season of an NFL schedule. So instead of 8 home games, you're basically playing 16 home games. And when you say that most of the time those games are filled up, I mean, that's a good chunk of the population that's heavily engaged in coming to these games. So there's a passion. That's awesome.
And even you mentioned, it's funny you say that, because for Belfast you think that, but you go to some of the leagues. I mean, France probably has one of the most lucrative rugby leagues in the world, along with probably Japan. But France, it's very much like so rugby in Ireland is done on the state or the province or whatever you want to call it, and France is done by the city. So you go to some cities in France which have rugby teams, and they won't have any more than 30 to 40,000 population of the town or the city, and literally on a match day they would have 80 to 90% of the town or the city, if you want to call it, if it's that big, will be at the rugby game, and you can go around the town and there'll be nobody else. It's like a ghost town, So that's pretty unique as far as that goes for French sport.
Is there in soccer, there's like relegation, when you don't have a great successful year, you're in the bottom 3 or whatever, you kind of flip flop with the league below you. Does that exist in rugby?
Depends what league you're in. The English Premiership that I played in, there was relegation. I think they're thinking about stopping that. But the league I played in, which the Irish provinces were in, there was no relegation in that. And I think most of the leagues, the French one does have relegation. A lot of the Southern Hemisphere ones don't. So it kind of just depends.
Okay.
There's arguments for both, which is better, which is not.
So do you so growing up in Ireland, obviously you grew up playing rugby. What other sports are popular over there? I mean, soccer.
In Ireland, soccer is. I think actually rugby might be number 1 sport at the minute. They've had the last kind of 10 years, Irish rugby's been amazing. So they've had huge success and popularity's grown. So it's probably rugby's number 1. Soccer's obviously big. It's always going to be big. But actually, no, I got that wrong completely. The biggest sport in Ireland is Gaelic football or Gaelic games. So there's 2 Gaelic games. There's Gaelic football, which is very similar to Australian rules football or Aussie rules football.
Okay.
And there's another one called Hurling, which is very similar to, well, not very similar, but it's kind of similar to lacrosse, basically. So they're the kind of 2 big ones, and obviously rugby and soccer as well. So they I guess they'll be the main 4 ones.
Wow, that's crazy. That if I wouldn't know what hurling was if I was watching it on TV. So
nobody would. It's just not shown. It's the only country it's played, so nobody would watch it. But it's an amazing sport. Like, it's so fast, and it's I mean, you have the goalkeepers. I haven't watched enough across to comment, but the goalkeepers in hurling, they're getting these rock hard balls getting smashed at them 100 mile an hour, and they don't wear, well, a lot of them don't wear like helmets or face masks. It's like
crazy.
A bravado thing, that I don't want to, I don't want to be the guy. So they're literally throwing themselves in front of this, and it's just crazy. Yeah.
Well, you got to think about too. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the sports over there, it's in a generation after generation after generation. These are sports that have been being played year for like hundreds of years, whereas America, we've only been around for a couple hundred years as a freaking country, so
Yeah.
because I was watching, is Ireland a part of the Highland Games over there? I know that's Scotland.
Um, I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure. I know for sure Scotland, yeah, they do all the kind of throwing the big massive log over the
Yep, yeah, and
the bar and
the
all that.
kegs,
Yeah.
tossing those over their heads and stuff too. I didn't know how, because I know like it's something that's obviously it's just once a year, and these guys train for it the whole year. Because I watched a show on Netflix. It's called Home Field Advantage, I think it's called, or maybe just Home Field, and the King and Queen actually go to the games too every year. It's like a tradition of theirs. So.
Right?
It's like a unified. Yeah, I didn't even know that. So it's pretty cool. Check it out on Netflix. They had a lot of crazy sports. They had another one where you actually might find this interesting. It's a combination of like rugby and
I knew you were going to say this. It's the one in Italy, isn't it? It's
yes, in Florence.
What's the name of it? It is. I know what show you're talking about, and I watched. It's the first episode of it.
Oh, Calencia. It's something like that.
It's something like that. It's unbelievable. It's literally like UFC come rugby stroke handball or something like that. It is like no holds barred, fighting until you clear a pathway to score a goal. Like it's just
You gotta be nuts.
mayhem.
You gotta be nuts to do
brilliant.
that.
I know. But they train all year for it. Like it's one of these kind of
Yep.
where I can't remember the city. Is it
Florence, Italy.
Florence, yeah,
Yep.
and they divide up like 4 regions of Florence. They've been
Mhm.
doing it for centuries,
You can only go where you were born, right? I think that was the
That's right,
caveat.
yeah.
So
It's exciting. Yeah, I remember seeing that. It's brilliant.
So definitely, if you're listening to this, and this kind of there's a little bit of the inspiration about this show, to be honest with you, too, because I was watching it and I'm seeing these, because it was that sport, and then it was free diving's another one, roller derby, and it's basically they do documentaries on the lesser known sports, but these people train their asses off, year round to perform at the highest levels of these sports, but it's nobody's full-time job because that just doesn't exist. So that's where I kind of became with the idea of this. Like, I love talking to people like you because you played at the highest level, but now you've had to transition to, let's say, quote unquote normal person life. And so like I mentioned, kind of like a selfless plug here, but you work for Rubcore, and the reason I say selfless plug, for those who don't know, they are a sponsor of mine, and that's how I met Roger. I worked with Jonathan Wilson, shout out to Jonathan, at an old job, and we stayed in contact, and then it was just kind of like a perfect marriage for their. They do rubber flooring, customized rubber flooring, and Roger's a part of the athletic division, so he's an athletic floor specialist, and if you follow me on Instagram or any of the social media channels, I'm always showing pictures of it. It's under my cycling, under my bike in my little cycling studio. So that's how we met each other. But so how did you make the transition from Ireland to Rubcore? Connect the dots. What took you here?
Well, I didn't go directly into Rubcore, so we moved out here about just over 2 years ago. My wife's a US citizen. We've got 2 young kids. So I retired 3 years ago. So we always wanted to come out here and just do something different. We ended up in Texas for a number of different reasons, good weather, good economy, cost of living, all that sort of stuff. So we ended up in Texas. But whenever we got out here, I first of all set up a company called Tackle Smart, which is really coaching football players here how to adopt the rugby style of tackling, basically using your shoulder more to try and reduce concussions.
Because that's a huge
sports.
deal. That's a huge in football.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the equipment that you can kind of hide behind. So you see these players weaponizing their bodies, leading with their heads, or just using their body like a missile, really. When
well, that's it. Yeah, and I think that's one of the big dilemmas that they have, is that constantly they're bringing out all this like quote unquote new technology, this new helmet's going to stop concussions, but it'll be great for stopping fractures and cuts and bruises and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't really stop the brain shaking around inside the head, which is essentially what a concussion is. And if you're constantly being taught or not being taught technique and how to tackle, you're putting your head in a position which is going to get an impact, which is essentially going to shake your brain. So the big difference kind of in rugby, you didn't have the helmets, you don't have the pads. So as a kid, the first thing you're taught is how to tackle properly and put your head in behind or to the sides so that you're not getting a collision.
And you're not wrapping up. A lot of players are ankle biters, or they're looking for that big hit, where they're not wrapping up, and then you see a lot of thudding.
Yeah, so there's a number of different things that you can combine. I mean, safety is a big thing, but performance as well. I believe what I'm coaching is going to make teams or players better tacklers as well. So anyway, I started that up, and I've been doing it for about a year. And I was just about to go into kind of a program where I'd moved on and I was starting to do coaching of the coaches themselves, so kind of educating the high school coaches on how to use these techniques. And then along came old COVID-19, and things get kind of put on the back burner for a while. So it was around that time that Jonathan Wilson, who a former colleague or a former employee of FC Dallas, came along, and I'd known him for a while, through kind of networking events and things. And the timing kind of was just very fortunate that he asked me to come on full time and really take a lead in the sports performance line of what they are doing. And RubCorp really is it's a rubber surfacing company. Not many people have a clue what that means, but the easiest way to think about it is, kids playgrounds or play areas, that sort of crumb rubber or rubber crumb material. They've done a lot of their big thing. I mean, it's a small company with some great people in charge, about 10 people altogether, but they've done some huge work out in Las Vegas. I mean, if you walk up and down that strip in Vegas, most of the casinos and the resorts you see there will have this surface put down around their pool areas, Caesar's Palace, Planet Hollywood, all these sort of Flamingo, all these different places. But they're really trying to expand things onto sports performance, and that's kind of where Jonathan brought me in to try and use the knowledge that I've had with professional sport and the contacts that I have to try and push this a little bit further, which has been great. It's been a learning curve a lot, because the life as a pro athlete, whenever you go into that from school, basically your whole life's basically spoon fed to you. So you're told you're sent a schedule for the week. You're told what time to turn up, where to meet, what to wear, what to eat. It's all given to you. Your training diary's given to you, and you literally don't have to think. You just have to make sure you're there on time. So that's one of the big difficulties, or the transition that people make from professional sport to the real world is the big challenge. Where a lot of people end up facing kind of mental health issues because they just really aren't prepared for it. So
yep. And Roger, and that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you, because the idea of the show is it's people who compete at really high levels, whether it be whether you were middle school, high school, college, or you play professionally. Well, it's not something that it's like you're done and then you're done with life. You're just gonna ride it out. It's you got to keep grinding, and I feel like athletes have that competitive, that streak in them that they have to get out, and that's why when you mentioned that you continue to still play, you play in the quote unquote the old boys league or whatever they call it.
Yeah. I did a kind of invitational tournament out to Bermuda. It's like they call it the old Bermuda Classic, so it's like a veterans tournament. So Ireland we played against South Africa, Argentina, these sort of teams. But yeah, it was more of a social than anything. But it got competitive, a lot more competitive than I thought it was going to get, and I was very not really conditioned. I train most days, but I don't train for contact situations anymore. So I tell you, it took me a good 3 or 4 weeks to fully get over it.
I mean, aside from
it wasn't there was no gentleman's agreement, put it that way. It was pretty full on.
Well, you get a bunch of high-level competitive athletes playing a contact sport. I mean, it's you kind of know where that's going to go, right? It's hard to hold up.
Yeah, but it was all sold to me nicely and say, oh, we'll get a 5-star hotel out in Bermuda and it's going to be nice and chilled. We'll do no training. We'll just turn up and play the games. But as soon as you turn up to play the games, you get one or two of the old school players. They start breathing fire and bringing back old memories, and then it just gets really full on. So it was good fun, but it was I'll probably park that and refuse to come next year.
Same thing happened to me. I played where I'm from in Buffalo. There's this company that travels the country, and what they do is they put together. They travel the country and they find like some of the biggest rivalries, in the towns or in the cities, and they set up a full contact, full pad football game. And I was originally so when this company came, around to our city in Buffalo. I was at the time playing professionally, not, I wasn't in the NFL or anything, but I was playing indoor football, and so I was in football
Uh-huh.
shape, and I became the biggest advocate for it. And man, I didn't realize. I mean, we had players of all decades, players in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and once game day came, I mean, they literally brought a truck of shoulder pads and helmets, and it was just
Uh-huh.
full go. And kind of like the same thing you're talking about. They sell it as, yeah, it is full pad, full contact, but it's just to be safe, and it's for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, once you strap those pads on, and it's like kind of like the reverse of PTSD, you know what I mean? You just kind of like snap back
Yeah.
into it, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. I was like, man, I play professionally, like I'm getting hit
Yeah.
3, 4 times a week, and I'm still, this is pretty intense.
I know. I just think it's that competitive nature as well. Like you go with the mindset of just taking it easy and chilling, but as soon as you get in the pitch, it just you can't really do that. And it's a kind of saying whenever I go to the gym fairly regularly now, and even sometimes I go in the gym and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take it easy today and chill. And you kind of get on the treadmill or whatever it is, the bike, and you just chill for a while. And you get, oh, this is a bit boring. Let's put it up a bit. And by the time you know it, you're absolutely busting yourself, and you're trying to reach a certain number of calories burnt
Yep.
after a certain period of time. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's that kind of mindset's built into you.
That's exactly right. When you've competed, and again, that's why I wanted to start this show. I talked to, I mean, I had a guy on a couple weeks ago. He started getting into inline speed skating at the age of 40. I have,
Really?
yeah, and this guy came in third place at the national championships. There was another guy or a couple of, they're kids, they're 21, but they've been playing Can Jam. I don't know if you even know what that game is. But
No idea.
it's basically, it looks like you're throwing a frisbee at a garbage can, and they are the two-time national champions, and they're cousins. And they started when they were 10 years old playing this game.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So my goal is to, if someone listening to this who played rugby maybe growing up, or you know sees you as a professional athlete who, let's face it, a lot of some professional athletes don't find that continued grind, that continued competitiveness. So I guess that's my question: is how do you, aside from that one-off occasional like tournament or anything like that, do you do any type of like leagues, or do you do anything to compete to get that streak out of you?
Not right now. It's just I think we're over here 2 years, and the whole transition from going, well, number one, kind of moving from one part of the world to the other without any family network with two. I mean, our kids are 2, 3 years old, so that in itself has been pretty time consuming,
I can't
and
imagine doing that.
also,
That's nuts.
yeah, and kind of just getting used to a new way of life in a new part of the world, and
Hmm.
new line of work as well, just trying to get that all settled. So really, up until now, I haven't really had a huge amount of time. I would love to do kind of focus on, I don't know, whether it be kind of something along the lines of even what you do yourself, like triathlon. But I just don't know. I haven't. I will get the stage where I'm going to do something, but up until now, I haven't had the time. But you definitely have that. There's something in you that you can't really sit still for too long.
Hmm.
It's there's something in there that really wants to make you compete again.
Yep.
So maybe when the kids get a bit older, I'll just start getting very competitive with them.
Now you played for 15 years. How old are you?
38.
Okay, so you started probably what, right out of college or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I pretty much started like halfway through college, and then went pro halfway through. And then the way it works back home, you can become pro, and then you can do your rest of your college like a little bit slower, if you know what I mean.
Oh, that's
So
cool. Yeah.
yeah, from probably basically from age 20 to 35, I think it was, I was pro.
Nice. I mean, I'm 34, and I can't imagine wrapping up the pads right now. I mean, that's the point
Yeah.
until you're 35. That's pretty impressive.
But that's the other thing as well. Like, I would love to do more. People are always saying, "Oh, come and do some, kickboxing or whatever it is." But at the same time, I realize that my body's not really what a lot of. Physically, I'm at, like, to look at. I'm not like overweight, and I'm not this and that. But in terms of kind of joint movements and a bit of soreness and niggle, like, I'm probably not where most 39-year-olds are. So I'd love to do a lot of stuff, but you are pretty restricted in the wear and tear that your kind of body's taken over that period of time.
Well, that's what happened to me, and I'll tell you what, man. You know this. I'm trying to qualify for Bermuda next year, and if I do,
That's right.
you're gonna come, and you're
I'll
gonna
be
get
there. I'll be
inspired,
there.
and then we're gonna both do triathlons all over the world. How's that sound?
That sounds perfect. I
There we
would
go.
be up for that 100%.
That's a
I do. You
plan.
just need to teach me how to swim properly.
Yeah, well, I'm still learning that myself, so I don't know if
You
I'm
allowed
the right
to? Are
person
you
to
allowed
come
to wear flippers? Are you or not?
No flippers, no wetsuit. If it's cold enough, you can wear a wetsuit that keeps you buoyant, so you're not drowning.
I'd be more worried about the jellyfish things. That's why I'd be wearing it.
Oh, I hate the ocean ones freak me out because
Yeah.
I grew up on the Great Lakes, so we never had to deal with any saltwater fish or
Yeah.
any of that nonsense. So I'm
Yeah, that
grossed out
freaks
by
me out a
fish
bit.
enough.
Yeah, I'm the same. But yeah, that sounds like a plan. We'll get that sorted.
I love that. Well, Roger, what I'm gonna do is at the end of every show, and I know you got to get going here. In the show notes, what I do is I put links to different stuff. So I'll put the Rubcore website on there. And I'm not just saying this because you sponsor me, but the floor is sick, and they custom made it for me. So just gave them the dimensions. They made it look great. So if you are, if say someone listening to this owns a gym or just wants something for their backyard, it's easy maintenance. And I'll put the link up there. What was the league that you were in? Because I'll post a link up to the website as well for your league that you were in.
The easiest one would probably be, it's just called the English. They change sponsors all the time, but it's just the English Premiership Rugby. If you kind of put something like that, that might be the easiest thing. So English Premiership Rugby.
And then I'll hook up your put your Instagram on there too, so people can follow you. I mean, I know you're always you have a fun life. I like following you.
Yeah, I kind of I'm a bit late to go on Instagram. I only went on it. I started it. I had one for Tackle Smart, my business, but I went to my personal one very recently. So I'm maxed out at about 250 followers. So I'm really flying high at the moment. So I could do with a few extras.
Let's get it up, folks. You heard him. You need some followers. Let's do it.
There you go.
And then the other thing, I'll put up the Tackle Smart website as well, and then I'll put up the USA Rugby, because there's always events going on all over the country, right? With USA Rugby, the governing body.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Especially with the sevens as well. Like US rugby's 15 players, but they have a shortened version called sevens, which is actually an Olympic sport now. And the US are actually very good at it. They're one of the best teams in the world. So yeah, that'll be good for people to have a look at.
It's fun to watch too. Like I said, compared to football, it's like watching football without the linemen. It's all just fast.
It's fast. It's nonstop. Yeah, it's brilliant sport to watch.
Awesome. Well, Roger, before you go, anything that we missed or anything that you'd want to add that we didn't go over?
No. I know we're a bit strapped for time, so and we're trying to fit everything in. But anytime you want me to come back, I'm where I am, so we can talk about other things another time. But yeah, aside from that, it was fun. Thanks very much for having me on, and I look forward to seeing your progress and getting that Bermuda trip sorted.
You got it, brother. Well, hopefully I can inspire you to do one of your own someday. Thanks for your time, man, and have fun at your practice.
Cheers, Brian. Appreciate it.
All right, I'll see you.
Some people might think you're sleazy. You're so fine, so you're making look easy. So much you can make a man green. So don't stop, go ahead and get freaky. You got me wanting to be with you. So sexy, I don't know what to do. Your curves are making my dreams come true. The way it's pushing me taboo. Just be naughty, move like a bro, girl, it ain't no hobby. Looking so good, gotta tell somebody. Blows my mind when I see a hot body. Hot body. Makes me wanna fall in love. Makes me wanna fall in love. Don't stop now, just get naughty. Move like a bro, girl,